All right, let me break down what's going on with Trump's latest legal maneuver, which has hit a procedural hiccup. Trump's legal team is trying to get his New York criminal case moved from the state court system to federal court. The reasoning behind this is pretty strategic. They're worried that if the case stays in state court, there's a real chance Trump could be incarcerated before the 2024 presidential election. That would obviously be a huge blow to his campaign, considering he's running for president again and leading in the polls. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Trump's lawyers are arguing that this whole prosecution is unconstitutional. They're relying heavily on a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that reaffirms the principle of presidential immunity. This ruling essentially says that U.S. presidents are completely immune from being prosecuted for actions they took while in office. So Trump's legal team is arguing that this immunity should extend to him, preventing him from being tried for the charges he's currently facing. They believe these charges are tied to actions he took as part of his presidential duties. But just after Trump's team filed this request to move the case to federal court, the federal court in New York issued a notice saying that there was a problem with how the filing was done. The court pointed out several procedural errors, things like the wrong PDF being attached using the incorrect event type in the filing process, and not having the court's permission to file the documents in the first place. Because of these mistakes, the court told Trump's attorneys that they need to go back, fix these issues, and refile everything correctly. In response to this, Stephen Chung, who is part of Trump's campaign communications team, put out a statement to clarify the situation. He emphasized that this notice from the court is purely procedural. It's not a ruling on the merits of the case or on Trump's legal arguments. Chung made it clear that Trump's legal team is already working closely with the court to make sure everything is refiled correctly, according to the court's guidelines. Now, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Back in May, Trump was convicted on 34 counts of falsifying business records. These charges stem from payments that were made during his 2016 presidential campaign. The case revolves around allegations that Trump made a $130,000 payment as part of a non-disclosure agreement to Stormy Daniels, an adult film actress. The payment was allegedly made to keep her quiet about an affair she claimed to have had with Trump. Trump has consistently denied that the affair ever happened, and he pleaded not guilty to all the charges against him. He has repeatedly stated that this case is nothing more than a politically motivated effort to damage his 2024 presidential campaign. As it stands, Trump's sentencing for these charges is scheduled for September 18th. That's just about 7 weeks before the election, which is obviously cutting it very close. Trump's legal team is also working to delay this sentencing. They've argued that the presiding judge in New York, Justice Juan Merchan, has imposed an unconstitutional gag order on Trump. This gag order, according to Trump's lawyers, is preventing him from responding to political attacks and from criticizing the ongoing proceedings in New York. They claim that this is damaging not just to Trump personally, but to the presidency as an institution and, by extension, to the federal government as a whole. This isn't the first time Trump's attorneys have tried to move this case to federal court. They made a similar attempt here, but it was rejected by the judge. The argument back then was that the indictment didn't involve Trump's official actions as president, so it didn't qualify for federal jurisdiction. However, Trump's legal team is now arguing that the situation has changed. They believe that state prosecutors misled the court by initially saying that the trial wouldn't involve Trump's official duties or actions as president. Given the recent Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, they're making a new case for why the trial should be moved to federal court. Looking ahead, the next major event in this saga will be in September. That's when the judge will decide whether or not to overturn the verdict and dismiss the case against Trump in light of the Supreme Court's decision on presidential immunity. This decision could have significant implications, not just for Trump's legal battles, but also for his 2024 presidential campaign and the broader legal landscape surrounding presidential immunity. It's a complex situation with a lot of moving parts, and it's far from over.